What's up, dudes? HW, going a little out of the scale there, if you caught that. You ever sit down and you're just in love with a sound? You know, this neck pickup on this guitar is just lovely, and I'm playing it through this RC50J. It's a Jimmy Page, kind of clone of Jimmy Page's high watt, and it's set clean. It's beautiful stuff, man. Early morning over here in Nashville. Today, gents, we're going to tackle the big problem. The big question. Which modeler should you buy in 2025? Woohoo, buddy. Here we go. Let's get into it. Now, the field has never been more open than it probably is right now when you're trying to answer this question. Before we get into the big names, there's brands like Moore. There's brands like Headrush. I got the Moore unit, by the way. I'm going to do a review on it. Headrush, I just busted that thing back out after the update. Both of those things are just like the new Headrush, the Core. I mean, it's almost impossible to answer these questions about which modeler to get without breaking them down into these subcategories, because there's actually several things out there that I do think compete with the HX Stomp now, in terms of the amount of effects and capability you get for your money. I think has gone through the roof. The Moore unit, the Core, both of those things I think are just as good as the HX Stomp. Now, obviously, the HX Stomp still a modeling unit that's been out for a long time. People still using it very successfully. And that's the thing about any of these modeling units. You want to talk about what's the best one to buy in 2025. It certainly is not a suggestion that the other ones aren't going to sound good in 2025, or that somehow the other ones aren't up to snuff, because we're now living in a time when it's been about 1 decade now since people have been being fooled on records, on live, all over the place. 2015 was kind of when I discovered the Kemper, and there was already lists and lists and lists of people who were using them, big acts, big tours who were taking them out, and it's only grown and grown and grown since then. People were being fooled back then. I believe in 2017, maybe 2018 was the big can Kemper fool chappers, Anderton's video, and that was Rob Chappers unable to pick out his signature amp he had just designed against the Kemper, and several times he said, "That one sounds better, that's my amp," and it was the Kemper. The guy had just gotten off tour with it and everything. So you're running into this thing now. You know, Lincoln Brewster obviously had been on the road for the whole life of the Helix, with a lot of Helix stuff, with Kemper things. The amount of people using QC, you're seeing those everywhere. Tonex, just we're so deep into it that any tones you get today in 2012, 2010, 2020. Sorry, not 2012, 2010. I meant 2020, 2022. Any of those tones that you were happy with, you're still very happy with today, and they're still tricking people. So now it is a question of maybe the future, maybe it's a question of value, maybe it's a question of functionality, because we are starting to see some differentiation in terms of these different functionalities, and we're seeing them at different price points. We, for the first time, have units with batteries entering in, which is not something I thought I wanted, but then I kind of realized, oh, wow, some of these battery units have like 16 hours of life, and you could charge it up at home, grab it, take it with you. You could play the whole Sunday morning, it never goes dead. You could play the whole Friday night from 10 to 2:30, it never goes dead. And you're well within, you're under 1/3 of the battery draw there. And what that means is you don't get any buzz from the lights, hopefully, unless it's going through the XLR and soundboard. What that means is you don't have to worry about power or anything. You just show up, plug in your 2 cables, and go. That's also cool. And it might also be cool if you're dealing with maybe you have a pedal board and a modeler and you're running out. I don't know. It's just a new thing, right? It's just a new thing. So let me disqualify some things in here that I'm not going to talk about. I'm not including Tonex, because I'm going to say this about Tonex. Tonex is a very narrow capability in terms of it basically does the amp sound. Now, they added the ability to do some effects, but I don't think it's fair to hold that unit up and compare it with units that advertise themselves as modelers and multi-effects. Like, it wouldn't be fair to me to say Tonex versus Helix, which would you get, right? Or Tonex versus HX Stomp, because those prices are closer. It wouldn't be fair to me to say, which one would you get? Because I think, although I'd say I prefer the Tonex in terms of the modeling capability, the amp tones, the editability and stuff, and sort of the form factor, what I can access, the added-on effects are not easy to access, and I would think the HX Stomp would win out. I think even something like the Moore unit or the Core, Headrush Core, easily beats the Tonex if you want to weight, amount of effects as that. So I say all that to say this. The Tonex really is not a multi-effects unit. It has a new multi-effects capability they gave us for free, which makes it even better, but I don't think they are billing that as the HX Stomp killer, especially because it's also available in $149, I think, dollar price point with the Tonex 1. So really, you'd have to compare that to something more in that price point. So I'm just saying this. To me, Tonex can't be our winner today, not because it's not maybe the best out there or the best for your situation. I think Tonex is maybe the best for many, many, many people's situation. If you're a guy who loves their pedals and pedal board and you don't want to give any of that up, you're not looking to streamline the pedal board, you just want to go direct, that's the way to go, probably. I mean, Tonex probably the way to go. At the Tonex 1 at $149, you load up your one, deluxe reverb, your, something of your amp, AC30, you're good to go. That's probably the solution for you, but I'm not going to... If the shoe fits, wear it. I think Tonex is incredible for that use case. But if you're talking about what's the best thing to get is you want like an all-in-one modeler, I'm also going to discount some other things, which is, or maybe I'm not going to discount some other things. We got to put them in two different categories. To me, it's compact versus not compact. This is very important because there are a lot of people who are trying to go to a modeler and they want the functionality of a modeler, but they also want to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other pedals on a pedal board. But they're not looking for just modeling tones. They want maybe an HX Stomp that has multiple capabilities. They want a Kemper Player, which is a unit I'm really enjoying right now. I've really been diving into that, and I'm getting ready to do a video on the Kemper Player. And to me, that's a really great unit. They might really be they might be looking for a unit that's like the Nano Cortex, which is a simplified version of the QC, and you basically have a lot less in terms of effects, but the effects you have are pretty good. But it sort of seems like it's almost meant to like run like, okay, here's like put 2 or 3 overdrives in front of it with maybe a compressor, and that's someone's like, go rig. So let's first start with the small category, the small guys, right? HX Stomp, Player, the Moore unit, the Core, the Headrush Core. If you're looking for touchscreen, the Core is the way to go. The Moore is the way to go. If you're looking for all that functionality, if you want all the functionality of the big unit and the same function of the big units in the small units, in a small package, those two are going to be the way to go. Now, my personal favorite in this category is the Kemper Player, and I'm going to tell you why. I am a Kemper player who is very familiar with the Kemper, has all my sounds, and I now have the ability to take it in a much smaller genre or in a much smaller package, right? So it's all my sounds, all my genres of tones down into this smaller unit. I upgraded it. There is now nothing's missing from it. There's no nerfed capability. There's no... missing effects or anything like that. So it's not like the Nano Cortex, which is like a mini quad Cortex. It's not like the HX Stomp, which has less DSP than the Helix. It is a full Kemper, but you don't have a screen. So Kemper is changing the way you interface with the unit rather than changing the capability of the unit. Does that make sense? In that way, it does appear to me to be kind of unique in that way. It is a full Kemper in a small box. It just doesn't have the screen, so you use your phone. Where I am okay, why I actually really enjoy this unit is I'm someone with a big Kemper who's already dialed in all my sounds. It's easy for me to put them over there. So I don't really have any complaints about using the phone app. Some people may. So for me, the small category, my favorite is the player. But I think realistically, for a lot of people, if you're not a Kemper player, I don't mean the little Kemper player. My favorite is the Kemper player. But if for a lot of other people who aren't Kemper users, I don't think that's going to be the best unit for you. If you're a Kemper guy and you really like Kemper and you want to get into Kemper, I think it's a great unit. But I think if you're a Kemper player looking to go smaller, I don't mean Kemper player, little guy. I mean, if you're a Kemper user and you want to go smaller, that's the unit to get. I wouldn't fiddle with anything else. In terms of the small guys, to me, it's a toss-up. If you don't mind the reduced, sort of, if you don't mind the reduced sort of capability in the Nano Cortex, that might be a way to go. But again, that's probably going to be for someone in the QC universe already. To me, it's a little harder to be for the Kemper player and the Nano Cortex to be your first unit if you're just getting into modeling, you're looking for one of those. And so to me, I kind of think the HX Stomp or like the More unit kind of wins out in terms of these smaller all-in-one sort of units. Now, you might be saying HW, but the HX Stomp is so old. I agree. If you want capture tech, that's why I choose for me the player, the Kemper player. But if you're brand new to modeling, you probably are not going to choose a unit with no screen, if that makes sense. I just think a lot of people are going to go, if you're brand new to modeling, you're going to go for the touch screen. And I think Moore and Headrush have them in those units. So my personal favorite's the player. I'm not sure everyone else is going to be there. If you want touchscreen, I think you're going to go with one of those in the smaller category. But for me, my favorite's the player. Okay, now on to the big guys, the big units. This is what everyone's really here for. Headrush is definitely in the competition now. I think these super clones are really unique and really interesting. I'm not sure if there's a large enough community there. I don't see a ton of talk about it online, but I am making stuff for the Headrush. I did last year, and now I am again this year. I'm going to have everything available for the Headrush this year because I really love this super clone idea, and I think it's an opportunity to make some really, really cool stuff. Now, here's where we get into the rub of all this. I think that if you compare the Helix and the Headrush unit, unless you say the Helix is better in terms of sound, it's on paper, looking at the Headrush unit, I think it's a better unit. I think the TMP, the ToneMaster Pro, on paper is just as good as the Helix. So it's hard for me with some of these modeling units to say one's better than the other without making a call on their sound. I've done previous to this a sort of shootout between the TMP and the Helix. And, I got to be honest with you, it really came down to just which models did you like better. I think in the TMP, I thought the Deluxe sounded better. When we were talking about AC30s, I kind of thought the TMP sounded really good, but then I like how the Deluxe the Helix was more punchy in its AC30. So it kind of also came down to effects because then, you're putting effects on it. It's like, a lot of these were very comparable to each other. And so it's really hard for me to say, if you just want a strict modeling unit with a touchscreen, honestly, the QC is the way I'd go. Maybe over the Headrush. I think it's better looking. I think it's super easy to use the Cortex Control online. It has a capture function. I think there's a bunch out there, and the community is very large. So it's hard for me to not call QC best in class in this upper category. I know that might be a left turn for some people. And I do have some complaints about the Quad Cortex. I'll share them right now. One is, it's years later, and we're still waiting for a store. And a store was talked about a long time ago, and I haven't really heard anything from them about it. Now, I am a partner, and I'm hoping that store is done soon. I know they're working on it, but I think what I'm guessing has happened is a lot of work went into the change in the Mac architect and to get, plugins on the QC. That's another reason the QC maybe kind of the best in class unit. The company, Neural DSP, also makes plugins that are very popular, and you can now take those with you. That is something that very few other units offer, sort of these new releases in terms of new plugins that you can use in your DAW. And a lot of people are recording this way. A lot of people are just recording directly into their computer. They want to be able to make tracks and do that. And then they might want to take those same sounds with them. And the QC gives you the opportunity to like fiddle around, create sounds, and really live on your computer when you're in your studio, and then take all those tones with you on the QC. In that way, it functions like a mini desktop computer to take your DAW tones with you. It's not a full DAW, but obviously, but you can take it with you. Now, there's other units like the that Paint Audio unit that looks like a QC, looks like a copy of a QC. And then obviously you have the Octave new touchscreen tablet that's coming out in NAMM that I've talked about on this channel. I'm very excited for that. That's a literal take it with you. But in terms of what's the best, what you should buy, or what's the best modeler in 2025, I'm going to make two arguments here. I'm going to say, one, the best unit is the QC in that it has a touchscreen, it's got capture tech, sharing is easy. I think negatives is I'm a capture seller. I would love to, I sell captures and tones and all sorts of stuff. I would love to see the store get finished. Why? It's so difficult for me to send everybody the captures, and Neural DSP has recently made this even more difficult. I'm sure they're not aware of this, but maybe they'll see this video. I used to be able to search for like multiple names at once in the search field. So I used to be able to like just, if 5 people ordered a pack, I could plug it in and all 5 of you would appear, and I could just say you. And now you have to search the names one at a time. So when someone orders the Quad Cortex Everything pack, it's just so laborious for me to send it. You might be thinking, well, who cares? You should be sharing stuff for free. Look, I have shared a lot of stuff for free. I think I have one of the most popular pedals and one of the most popular amps. I think only Rebay has stuff more popular than me on the QC Cloud. I've shared a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be sharing a bunch more stuff. I also give away a lot of free stuff. If you see those codes I give out, many people have gotten free stuff on Quad Cortex, which is difficult to maintain because it takes me a lot of time when we do a flash sale to go back and send all the QC stuff. But this workaround of people like me sending the stuff to their friends on, it's as Doug put it one time, an inelegant process. It's an inelegant workaround. I very much agree with that. Now, if you're not someone who cares about that, no fault on the QC. But I'll tell you, there's at least 1,000 people who have purchased Tone Junkie stuff on the QC who do buy stuff. And that's only people who bought stuff from me. That doesn't count all the other people who have bought things on other people's, worship tutorials, Amalgam Audio, anybody else, right? So at the end of the day, it's like, I think there is a demand for third-party captures. I think there's a lot of people who have and I get these requests all the time. Hey, HW, can you make this sound I had on the Kemper for the QC? And I go either yes, or I don't have that amp anymore, or I'm like, yeah, it's on the to-do list, But it's tough because if you're in that situation, it's an inelegant workaround. But I'm going to go left field here, and I'm going to say this. I'm not sure if you guys have seen how many used Kempers are sitting around on Reverb, but you can get a Kemper for like $800. And a Kemper for $800 and a Quad Cortex for quite a bit more than that used does start to beg the question a bit. Is there some justification where maybe I should buy a used Kemper? And is that the best? Is that a great deal in modeling? I will tell you, I use the Kemper every week and I'm very happy with my sounds. Now, I did recently take the Quad Cortex out for a weekend, and I have to tell you, I was just about as equally happy with my sound. But it was difficult for me to quite get all of the ambient stuff that I get out of the Kemper out of the QC there in terms of just some of the reverbs and delays. Whenever you go from one unit to another, There's always differences. And so it's kind of a personal thing. I'm used to a couple of the effects on the Kemper. And so to get my exact sound was mostly possible. The audience couldn't tell the difference, but I could tell the difference a little bit. And so I anticipate that if I continued to play the QC for say 5-6 weeks in a row, I would no longer perceive that my sound is any different. I would sort of get used to those small differences, and I'd go, that's my sound. And but I would say it's 90% the same. A little different in some stuff. Some of the routing stuff is a little different if I want to start recording with the QC. But I'm going to pick, these are my picks. I'm going to say a QC is best in class in terms of the feature set and everything. But I'm going to say a Kemper is going to be where is going to be my choice, because if you can get a Kemper for $850 new, I'd take that. I'd take, or $850 used. I'd pull up with a rack Kemper or a head Kemper to my gig, and I'd play it. And I would switch between 2 or 3 sounds, and I'd go, this is perfect. And I would maybe even get an aftermarket, controller or something to do that. But in terms of just the Kemper, like if I'm using it for recording at home, if I want to capture my amps and take that starts to be, I start to go, man, maybe that 850 as well. And that's before you make a deal. So kind of a left field, but I'm trying to be conscious of like price and stuff, because $1,600 is a lot of money. Not everyone has it, especially right now. I'm seeing all over the place, the consumer is a little on the weekend. HW out.